So I'm going to be presenting Peace in Nature from the geography discipline. So, seems to be frozen. I think it's because I used, we're just gonna go on Google Chrome.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
You don't care if you can't see the screen, right?
What's that?
You don't care if you can't see the screen, right?
No, no, it's fine. I'll leave it up
Yeah,
to your
that's
artistic
that's
sensibilities.
obvious. Okay, cool. I assume.
I already saying his poems for us. Got some great stuff.
Thank you. Do you want me to put that like in the portfolio?
Sure.
Because like that's mostly what I've been writing for
Yeah,
like.
most certainly put it in.
Okay, cool.
And send some stuff to Sienna.
I forgot. Sorry.
No,
Like,
no problem.
up to here.
When you're
I know
ready.
you're more busy than me, but like.
We're all busy. We're all busy. Yeah.
That's low. Okay. So we're going to restart that introduction. So I'm going to be presenting Peace in Nature from a geography discipline. So first we're going to look at how peace and nature are actually connected to geography. So the definition of geography is the nature and relative arrangement of places and physical features. So this includes the distribution of populations, resources, land use, and industries within the environment. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to be focusing on environments within communities and how we can incorporate nature into them and the benefits of that. So how can we incorporate nature into urban cities? Well, there's a movement that's called biophilic cities. So this comes from the term biophilia, which is humans' innate connection to nature. So biophilic cities essentially are cities in which integrating nature into urban design and planning is of primary importance. So they see cities not as disconnected from nature, rather embedded in it. So there's a huge importance on fostering connections between people and nature. So this includes how you care about the nature and environment around you. It can be as simple as going for a walk in a nature park. So geodesigning in biophilic cities. So how are these cities designed? Well, as you can see, like this picture over here, and I have other pictures. So geodesigning in biophilic cities encourages urban planners to take a more holistic view of the place. So this means that like how can we look at buildings, neighborhoods, and entire cities differently and incorporate nature into them. So I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard of Singapore City in a Garden, but basically they have been a biophilic city for 55 years, and they took the initiative to incorporate nature in different aspects of their city. So for example, you can see this picture over here. So this is a park connector that basically allows you to walk, bike, or jog from place to place without actually leaving vegetation. So you're actually elevated above the ground. So that's pretty cool. And I included other pictures. So Singapore and Melbourne are also, well, Singapore as I just mentioned, but Melbourne as well is a biophilic city. So you can see the creative use of design in the buildings and like the curvature. So yeah, and even the reflective buildings, it just creates a different ambiance if you see green rather than like a dusty gray. So what are the benefits of green spaces in urban cities? Well, the research suggests that from the reading that Jeff provided us with, green spaces provide us with environmental services. So it's a pretty well-known fact that vegetation and trees act as natural filters. So this improves our air quality, our water quality, and the quality of our soil. Trees actually have the ability to regulate our city temperature, which aids in global warming. Vegetation also provides a noise barrier, which can reduce noise levels. And a study in the reading that was provided to us says that those with access to a quiet side of their home actually have lower levels of stress and increased sleep quality. So that's pretty interesting. So there's also several health benefits. So as we've seen from previous presentations, the presence of greenery reduces tension and enhances relaxation. It's easier for us to perform better as well if there's green around us. So accessible green spaces. So this includes urban forests, gardens, nature parks. They may motivate us and encourage us to do physical exercise. So we're more likely to go outside, go for a run, go for a walk if there's a nice nature park around us. So residents who live by green spaces actually have lower levels of illness, which is very interesting. Community gardening can also help improve one's diet, which I'm going to talk about a bit later. And elderly residents who live by parks lined with trees, paths for walking, showed higher longevity because it got them out of the house. It got them motivated to do things outdoors and garden and stuff like that. So now we have to look at accessibility to green spaces. So unfortunately, there are racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic barriers in access to and quality of green spaces in neighborhoods in Montreal and in most urban cities. So generally lower socioeconomic neighborhoods have environments that are less conducive to physical exercise because of the dense population, the close proximity of buildings. So urban designers are trying to figure out how we can incorporate nature into these tight, close quarter spaces that's allowing everyone the access to parks, not just those who live in suburban areas like the West Island. So individuals from higher socioeconomic statuses are likely to be more active as the environment is in close proximity to green spaces. And lastly, we're going to be looking at how can nature lead to food security in urban cities. This is another element that's actually quite important when looking at geography and peace in nature. So we all know that access to nutrient-dense food is directly correlated to one's socioeconomic status. So this means that generally, if you're in a poor neighborhood or a lower socioeconomic neighborhood, then you're going to have less access to fresh produce than those living in, again, like suburban areas. So in central areas, one will have access to several small supermarkets, making it harder for them to complete one grocery order. So usually there's a compromise in an order because you're going to just these little supermarkets rather than going to one big IGA or one big metro. So this is why urban gardens are actually of primal importance in geography because they allow safety nets for low-income communities. So they provide fresh produce, they allow physical activity, and they foster relationships, obviously, because you're working together to create a beautiful garden and to get fresh produce. And they do not rely heavily on chemical fertilizers as well.
No. Okay, I'm just gonna talk.
Oh, you can talk to them log in mine.
Actually,
You can go. Thank you.
so I'm gonna be mirroring Tanya's speech with like in the biological perspective, peace in nature, but I'm not gonna focus more on like the fungi, but more on like the ecological and in general like what it means to be at peace with nature. So nature is we're nature, like everybody is nature, all the animals, all the little organisms are nature. And if you look at what biology means, it's a study of life. So that encompasses everything that we know that has like a that was born, that evolved or anything. So we are like a biological entity. We have plants are biological entities, and we also have, you know, underground we have biological entities who are more in the ecological sense of the biology term. So if we go back to what Tanya was saying with like the fungi who are helping flowers bloom and vegetation, you can see a symbiotic relationship which is very present, or it's supposed to be present with us humans as well, because if we look at nature in its resting state without our interference, nature lives in perfect harmony with itself. So the sun works to make, you know, flowers grow, and, you know, trees, they give us oxygen and they take away our CO2. Like we all are supposed to live in harmony. And if we look at how the biology of the earth and how our biology is designed, we thrive on helping others, and like because we receive help in return as well. So if we look at ourselves in our bodies, we have cells that are there to make us grow and make us live and make us help others grow and live too. So in that sense, peace in nature is inherent to our world. Even like we interfered in him, we have to learn to get it back, because we have taken it away after industrialization. We seem to have forgotten the notion that we are there to live in harmony in others, not to dominate on others. So if we look at how things were designed, you know, like at its core, we are meant to live in symbiosis and not in domination. So if we look again at the plants, they don't have our like the same intentions we do, because we seem to have developed into that idea that we can just conquer and be detached from everything. But if we look at how plants still interact with each other, they help each other out. We planted our tomatoes, and I my own Ivan, I was like, my tomatoes are gonna die because they're gonna be crowded by other tomatoes. It's like, no, they all share the same space and they all share the same sun. They're not going to die or kill each other. They're in competition, but all in all, they live in harmony. And we have to learn to live in harmony as well. It's a lesson we can take from nature, from a biological perspective.
So hello, my name is Sydney, and I'll be presenting to veganism. So are animals being valued as much as humans? Humans are not seen as equal to nature, they are seen as something more superior. We all have individual rights that all need to be respected. So for example, slavery, we could all agree that that was a very cruel act, and it was we would never want to go back to that type of society again. It was very inconsiderate of us to think of other people, use them like that, and it made them feel like they are worthless and not respected at all. And this was an act of inconsideration. Sorry. This is how we treat animals nowadays, and it's not good for the society, and we don't understand that animals also feel pain, and they go through bad times just like us, and some emotions that animals take and have are loneliness, fear, aggression, frustration, motherly love, and pleasure, happiness, and many more. They're just like us, they're equal. And many people don't realize that the food on their plate was a live animal that has been going through torture from the beginning of their life to the end. They haven't really had much freedom in between. And humans are special because we have individual rights, and we are, because we see our lives as more important. But also animals, so what makes us different than animals? And so the answer here is nothing really, we're pretty equal. So similarities. Animals have their own goals and positive interests as well. They are valuable creatures that deserve everything that we have. So there's a race, there's a human race, and a race for others. And we are racist towards the animal race. And here's a video to kind of demonstrate a little more what I mean.
Victor Hugo said, "There is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come." Well, animal rights today is now the greatest social justice issue since the abolition of slavery.
There has been an undeclared war on animals since the beginning of time because they're vulnerable, because you can pick on them, because they can't arm themselves, because they don't know that you're coming.
I forced myself to watch a documentary called Earthlings, and it's inside footage of factory farms. You just see that and you go, I can't participate in that.
Animals must be off the menu because tonight they are screaming in terror in the slaughterhouses, in crates and in cages.
And you think about the consumption and how fast they have to mass produce, and you can't possibly put together in your head one healthy, happy animal.
There is absolutely no trick to looking back on the great injustices of our time and condemning them. We understand that. We got that. The trick is always to look at what we're doing today as if we were some point in the future looking back and figure out what the oppressions and the injustices are that we're committing today and to get them out of our lives.
They haven't attacked us, they haven't done anything, and yet we continue to attack them, we continue to round them up, imprison them, strip them of everything, and slaughter them. For what?
Animals are not just other species, they are other nations, and we murder them at our peril. The peace map is drawn on a menu. Peace is not just the absence of war, it is the presence of justice.
For my whole adult life, I felt absolutely driven to try to convince people to consider animals, no matter what they're doing, whether they're buying something to eat or wear, or they've got a dog in their house. They need to think of what that animal is going through, to put that animal in the equation.
The axis of evil does not run through Iraq, Iran, or North Korea. It runs through our dining tables. Weapons of mass destruction are our knives and forks. Let's get animals off the menu and out of these torture chambers. It solves our environmental, water, human health problems and ends cruelty forever.
Okay, so seeing that video, you can see that animals are not well treated. Okay. So 92% of Quebec's cows are in tie stalls, which are what you see here and it's shown in the video. So clearly they don't even have space to move. They can only go from side to side, and they can't even do like a 180 degrees, and most of the time their head is stuck to a chain. So I don't know how you can imagine living like that. It's kind of pretty cruel. And all animals with values should have protected individual rights, including the right to life. So to ensure that cows constantly produce milk, they are impregnated by humans constantly throughout life, and they don't really have a break. Then this is shown in the picture right here. They have like something with sperm inside, and they insert it in the cow's uterus, and when the cow gives birth, well, when you have a baby in you, it's kind of emotional, you get attached, but then right the second that the cow gives birth to the calf, they are separated, and so this causes them to be depressed, and the calf is confused. Well, they're both confused, and they don't really know what's going on. And on top of this, they're forced to produce 27 kilograms of milk per day, and on an average, they're supposed to produce 7 kilograms, so that's 20 kilograms more than what they're supposed to. And comparing this to humans, it's like forcing us to run a minimum of 6 hours a day. And I don't know about you guys, but I run 2 minutes. I'm so tired. Cows are often suffer from mutilation in their horns, tails, and others. So without being given any anesthesia, so they're in so much more pain. So the health factor. We are perfectly healthy with a meatless diet. Dairy products are the #1 source for saturated fats. And when a human intakes double the amount of saturated fats, they are 3 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's when you get older. A diet centered around whole plant foods is the best way to reduce your heart disease issues, and it's proven in many patients. So milk contains pregnancy growth hormones, which is something that nobody really wants. It gives you acne, and it also produces many cancers, multiple cancers. So in conclusion, our society is currently not in peace with nature. Animals deserve to live their lives free from suffering and exploitation. But also we could fix this by allowing animals to be free and not being slave for consumers, so the animals not being slave for consumers. And a little quote from, you saw the girl in the video, is the founder of PETA. Her name is Ingrid Newkirk. She said, when it comes to pain, love, joy, and loneliness, and fear, a rat is a pig, a dog is a boy. Each one values his or her life and fights the knife. And that's it.
Esme, you're okay? So Jamil, you're up. You're waiting for the computer to load. Is that right?
I'm waiting for if there's any questions for him.
Good.
Mine is not really.
Right on. Any questions for our panelists?
Do you think it's realistic for us, or like, not realistic, but do you think it will be possible for us to have a progressive society where we don't eat animals, despite the fact that we're still like disrespecting some humans and we're not able to get past that?
That's a good question. Somebody brought that up for me earlier, but I think it's just there are a lot of people that are fighting for animal rights because there are already a lot of people focusing on rights for other people. You know what I mean? So they already have more support than animals, and now we are in the process of gaining more support for animals. So I think it should be equal, and we will get to that point pretty soon.
You mentioned that,
We have a question over here.
Gabby mentioned that plants help each other a lot. Besides the mutualistic symbiotic relationship with the mycorrhiza fungi and other plants, what other ways do plants help each other?
Well, it all comes down to symbiosis, because anything that they can do to help each other is a symbiotic relationship, because it's not just them helping in a one-sided way, or they don't expect anything. It just works that way, that they help each other. Like when a plant gets some sunlight, they don't like, let's say, push another plant out. Like they might turn more towards the sun, but they will not necessarily kill the other plant. You know, like we're more prone to taking hastier decisions to put ourselves first, but plants, they tend to live in better harmony than we do. Like you won't, when you go to a forest, you see all these trees growing together. You don't see like 50 trees dead and one tree alive. Like they all share it together. They all live together, you know?
Costa, you had a question?
Yeah, like you said something about Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's. Oh yeah.
True.
Yeah, if you take double the amount of saturated fat, so like what is in dairy products, then you're 3 times more likely to develop Alzheimer's. I don't know the science behind it, but
Eating a lot of dairy will lead to Alzheimer's.
yeah, and acne.
And
I don't eat dairy, so I'm not.
I gotta cut down the lattes, right?
That's right. That's right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a comment. During the last semester, I did Bio 1 and we did an experiment with the radish seeds, because plants produce a chemical called allylochemical. Yeah, that chemical, and that chemical is the way they compete to actually have like more soil for themselves. So it kills other plants trying to grow. So they don't live in complete harmony.
They don't live in complete harmony. That's true. Not like the way our world was designed. We take things to further extremes than plants do. If you you don't agree, like